Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to the Wobble and Joy Sports channel. If you're new around here, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. If you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Round 3, I got 4 from 8. 50%'s all right, but it's not great, is it? So far, I've got myself approximately 14 correct tips out of a possible 24. There are some people in the rugby league community that are sitting at about 22, 23 correct tips. They're from another friggin' planet. Round 4 of the 2023 NRL season starts with a grand final rematch on Thursday Night Football from CommBank Stadium. Parramatta Eels host the Penrith Panthers. On tab.com.au, the Eels are $3.30. The Penrith Panthers are $1.34. Just some of the history between these two sides. This is going to be the 108th meeting between the two, yet Parramatta still have the wood over the Parramatta Eels. At CommBank Stadium, these sides have met each other 3 times. Parramatta have actually won 2 of the 3 meetings between the two at CommBank Stadium. Let's get into the team list news now. And as expected, the backline for the Parramatta Eels are unchanged. Looking at the forward pack now, Ryan Matterson comes in for Matt Dury in the backline. Ryan Matterson starts in jersey number 12. And looking at the interchange bench, Matt Dury actually isn't injured. Okay, then there you go. So he's jersey 14. Brendan Hands is a name that I've never seen before, so if that's your debut, congratulations, young man. Wiramu Grigg and Makahisi Makatoa round out the bench for the Parramatta Eels. Looking over to the Penrith Panthers, who are coming off their bye, the 1 through to 7 for Penrith Panthers are unchanged. The forward pack looks like it's unchanged as well, and the interchange reads Luke Sorensen, Lenu and Jamin Salmon. Speaking to a couple of other YouTubers, it seems that the general consensus is this is Parramatta's big, fiery match for 2023, and I think it's hard to argue against as well. I do anticipate Parramatta Eels to come out of the blocks, probably putting in their most ferocious 80 minutes for 2023 so far, undoubtedly. But the Penrith Panthers, look, you can't go past the premiership success. They're an absolute machine. I am going to tip the Penrith Panthers. They haven't produced a hell of a lot better form, than the Parramatta Eels, but they are coming into the game 1-1 with a bye under their belt. They're coming off a bye. They're going to be rested. We saw what Manly did last weekend, coming off a bye, starting the game, firing on all cylinders. I think the Panthers will win this one. I really want to say 13 plus, but I'm going to say 1-12 for now because Ryan Matterson is a nice inclusion back into the Parramatta Eels lineup. So I'm going to tip the Penrith Panthers to win the Western Sydney Derby, the grand final rematch, 1-12. Friday Night Football features 2 contests. Game number 1 is from Amy Park. The Storm host the Tigers on tab. The Storm are $1.30 favourites. The Tigers are $3.50 outsiders. And this is going to be the 36th meeting between the two clubs, the first since round 1 of 2022. Well over a year since these two clubs last clashed. This is going to be the first trip to Amy Park for the West Tigers since round 10 of 2019. And the last time that they even defeated the Melbourne Storm was back in 2018, a long time between drinks. So while the Melbourne Storm have absolutely dominated this fixture, in particularly over the past 3 seasons, winning by 60 or 50 odd sort of points, the Tigers have actually been able to score at least 3 tries in the past 2 or 3 beltings that they've copped from the Storm. So they can actually still score some points against the Melbourne Storm in those bashings that they've had. But I am kind of fearful that this might be a really ordinary game of footy on Friday night, and well deserves the 6 o'clock kickoff Friday night slot, that's for sure, because coming into this game after 3 rounds, these are 2 of the 5 worst missed tackling clubs in the competition. I believe it is either Tigers or Melbourne Storm. Melbourne Storm coming in as the team that has missed the most tackles so far in 2023. And also, these are two of the three worst teams when it comes to handling errors to start the season. This could be a really ugly game of footy, but let's have a look at the team list news now. And from 1 down through till 5, they're unchanged after last weekend's loss to the Gold Coast Titans. Jerome Hughes has been named. I was under the impression that he was not going to play. I thought he was suspended or cited for a shoulder charge, but alas, he has been named. But watch that space. Wow, okay. But Cameron Munster, look, he has been named in jersey 6, but do I think he's getting rushed back in? I think so. I think it was always sort of earmarked that he was probably going to miss 3. So I think they're rushing him back in, unfortunately. The forward pack is unchanged from last weekend, but shout out to Alicia Katoa, who plays his 50th game of first grade. Kudos to you, bro. And then the interchange bench reads Wishart, McDonald, Sims, and Garlick. Now let's look at the West Tigers lineup. And again, I read these team lists fresh as a daisy. So these are fresh reactions, and I'm really interested to see what happens here. So at fullback, we've got Adam Doherty is in at fullback, and the halves pairing, Brandon Wakeham is the 5'8", and Luke Brooks is the halfback. The rest of the back line, Staines and Tupou, are the wingers, and Naden and Kapoa. So Kapoa, who's been a really good starter for him, is in the centres as well. Moving into the forward pack now, Isaiah Papali'i returns from suspension. John Bateman purely has the jersey number 12 on his back, and Fonua Pole has jersey 13 on his back. And the interchange bench reads Dane Laurie, Alex Twal, Sean Bloor, and Alex Seyfarth. Just a shout out to Sean Bloor last weekend against the Bulldogs. Yes, they all got pumped, but I thought Sean Bloor, bro, finally on the big first grade stage showed why there's so much hype about him. I thought he did some really, really good things in that game against the Bulldogs. I think this is going to be really close, actually. I think this is going to be close, even if Munster and Hughes are there. But I am going to stick with my tip of the Melbourne Storm to win this game. But that is a much better looking West Tigers outfit. And look, we know that 7+ years ago, the Tigers had the wood over the Storm there, winning 2 games in one season against them, sort of thing. But that was years ago. That was years and years ago. So I'm going to stick with the tip of the Melbourne Storm. But can Cameron Munster really be that much of a difference to a Storm side that is one of the ugliest teams to watch so far in 2023? I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes. But again, a Tigers outfit, bro, that 1-17, oh man, should be better than 0-3. And the main event on Friday Night Football, the main event of the entire weekend for round 4, is the first ever Battle of Brisbane. Battle for Brisbane, however you want to phrase it. It's the first ever meeting between the Dolphins and the Brisbane Broncos. And on tab.com.au, we've got ourselves the Dolphins at $3.35 outsiders. The Broncos are $1.33 favourites. That's a little bit big. It's a lot of nice value, but it's a little bit big on the Dolphins just quietly. Now, the big news for the Dolphins team list is that Felicia Kolfusi, I should say, he is at the judiciary tonight contesting to downgrade his charge. If he is successful, he will play in this game. So there might be a swap and a change. But let's get into the team list news now for the Dolphins. Starting at fullback, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. The wingers, Isako and Tessie New. Ewan Aitken and Brenko Lee are the centres. Katoa and Sean O'Sullivan have been named. But there is a whisper. That young Isaiah Katoa didn't train today on Tuesday. And there is a whisper that maybe Anthony Milford could be parachuted in this Friday night. Forward pack now is Jesse Bromwich. Kenny Bromwich is also playing in the front row. I've got to really watch his game this Friday night. And Cody Nikorima is still there in jersey number 9. The back row, Kofusi has been named. Connolly Lemuelu's season continues to impress a lot of people because he's been named to start in jersey number 12. Jared Wallace, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone, and Mason Teague are named on the interchange bench. But just looking at the reserves list there, you've got Anthony Milford, Poasa Famasuli. So if Kofusi, Katoa are due to either be suspended or succumb to injury, there are some names there that are ready to take over, obviously, on the reserves list. Now, looking over to the Brisbane Broncos, now they're unchanged in the back line from last weekend's good victory against the Dragons. The forward pack, Flegler, Walters and Haas. The back row, Capewell, Ricky and Carrigan. And the interchange bench reads Pakes, Palacia, Jensen and Tapoa. Sorry, I hope I pronounced that right. I don't think I did. I want to say the Dolphins have a chance in this game, but they had it brought to them last weekend against the Newcastle Knights down in the Hunter Valley. A Knights outfit that were pretty bloody depleted. They had 20 points put on them, but they were able to score 36 points. And surprisingly, these two clubs are coming into this fixture as the two teams who have scored the most tries of anybody else. And do I think that means we're in for plus or like over 40s, over 42 points in this contest, potentially, considering the Broncos defensively for the first 70 minutes last weekend weren't all that good, not what they were or had been over the opening fortnight of the competition. I am going to back the Brisbane Broncos. I think I'm going to go 13 plus. I'm going to go 13 plus the Brisbane Broncos. I just think this is going to be the game that the Broncos are going to, unfortunately, give the Dolphins their first ever loss in the National Rugby League. But can I just very quickly say, if the Dolphins do beat the Broncos, oh my God. There are two games on Super Saturday. Game number 1 is Cowboys versus Titans, but stay tuned tomorrow night for my chat with BKR Sport about that preview. So the second game on Saturday night, on Super Saturday, is the main event, and it is just about the second best, biggest game of the weekend as well. It is the South Sydney Rabbitohs hosting the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. The South Sydney Rabbitohs are $1.58. Manly are $2.40 on tab. And there is a stat that blew my mind only hours ago. Paddy G, I'm going to put his channel, the link to his channel, in the description box below, but he revealed something to me that absolutely blew my mind and makes me so excited for this game. This is the first time since 2019 that Latrell Mitchell and Tom Trbojevic have lined up against each other. There's been suspensions or injuries to either player, but this is the first time in 3 or 4 years that these two megastar fullbacks are going to collide against one another after being a centre pairing in New South Wales State of Origin for X amount of years now. That is worth the price of admission alone, bro. But the form of these two sides, dude, makes this the second most anticipated game for round 4, in my opinion. Now, the difference between the two sides and looking up the stats, missed tackles and handling errors. Rabbitohs are way up above Manly. As a matter of fact, I hope I'm not wrong about this, Manly Sea Eagles, they've missed less tackles than South Sydney Rabbitohs by 35 missed tackles. And South Sydney Rabbitohs are that third team to be a part of the worst 3 so far as handling errors go in the NRL to start off the competition. So let's look at the team list news now, because there are a couple of changes. So Latrell Mitchell, Johnston and Thompson are the back 3. The centre pairing is Tass and Graham. Walker and Ilias are the halves pairing. Daniel Saluka-Fafita is in for Tafita Totola, who has copped an injury and will miss at least a month of rugby league. So that's a devastating loss for South Sydney, and it's such a shame because Tafita Totola had his best year ever last year, and we're all really looking forward to seeing how he goes this season. So poor bugger, he's broken a mirror or something in the off-season to Tafita Totola. But he partners Tom Burgess, Saluka-Fafita does, in the front row to start off with. And Koloa Matangi, Jacob Host is now in for Jai Arrow, and Cameron Murray is the lock. The interchange bench is Taff, Michael Cheekham, Davey Mawali, and Jed Cartwright. And obviously, Hame Sele, he was knocked out in the first minute of the game. So he's succumbed to an 11-day mandatory stand down concussion protocol that was brought in by the NRL a week or so ago now. Shifting over to the Manly Seagulls now, and their backline is unchanged after last weekend's good performance against the Parramatta Eels. The forward pack is also unchanged. The interchange bench reads Weeks, Ben Trebojevic, Ethan Bullimore, and Sean Kepi in jersey 17. Manly Seagulls, I'll say this, for the first 60 minutes of that game, they looked like the brand new shiny side that has been rocking and rolling since the preseason started. But that final 10 minutes is exactly the sort of shit that got Manly way out of finals contention very, very quickly. So that puts me, and it's put the Hello Sport boys, it's put a lot of people on notice that, that sort of shit is still in their game, and it nearly cost them on Thursday Night Football. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, bro, they're still very dangerous. They've succumbed to Penrith in a good game. They've succumbed to Roosters, but their own poor handling, their own poor discipline is what's really letting them down. And Manly are more disciplined. They handle the ball better. They don't miss as many tackles as South Sydney. All the signs, though, for me are looking to tip South Sydney Rabbitohs. It's their first fair income game at Sydney Olympic Park this year, by the way. But Manly Seagulls, this is not a happy hunting ground, particularly for the Seagulls. They lost last year to the Bulldogs in the final round of the season. And another stat that I saw on Instagram online, Manly Warringah Seagulls fans on Instagram revealed that the Seagulls have not beaten South Sydney at Accor Stadium since the 2013 preliminary final. But I think records are, obviously, records are made to be broken. I'm going to tip the Seagulls here. There's just something telling me that Tom Trbojevic is going to put in a more wild performance than Latrell Mitchell. I think Josh Schuster, really impressive last weekend. Daly Cherry Evans, I'd like to see a little bit more of. Cody Walker and Lachlan Ilias really let down the South Sydney Rabbitohs, in my opinion, last weekend, whether it be because they were too quiet or too loud. I'm going to tip the Manly Warringah Seagulls to win this one in a beauty on Saturday night, 1-12. On Sunday, there are 3 matches, and game number 1 is from Mount Smart Stadium. The Warriors are hosting the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, and on tab.com.au, the Warriors are the favourites at $1.85. The Bulldogs are $1.95 over there at Mount Smart Stadium. Bulldogs, they actually visited Mount Smart Stadium last year, one of only 3 or 4 teams that got to play out there at Mount Smart Stadium for the first time in 2 or 3 seasons, and they got spanked by the Warriors, 42 points to 18. It was sort of the game that really killed their season after they found some mid-season form. Let's look at the team list news now, because again, there are changes. Charles Nickel-Klukstar is back in, replacing Toa Piki, who was very impressive on debut last weekend. Edward Kossi, Montoya are the wingers. Pompey and Vilea are the centres. Martin and Johnson are the halves pairing. The forward pack, it seems Wade Egan is going to be stood down for 11 days with HIA concussion protocol. That means Freddie Lussick comes in jersey number 9. And then the back row, Jackson Ford is back in after being rested after a concussion, and Marata Niukore and Tohu Harris fill out the back row. Then the interchange bench features Walker, Sirinen, Tavanga, and Tom Arley. And Jazz Tavanga, holy crap, he was brilliant. He was so explosive last weekend. One of the best games of first grade I've seen from him in years, if not ever. Fair dinkum. Shifting over now to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The back line is unchanged. Shout out to Karaz, who's leading the Dally M leaderboard at the moment by 2 votes. So you don't reckon the Warriors aren't going to focus all their bloody energies on that young man. And then the forward pack is unchanged as well. Jacob Preston, another young man that I've heard nothing about. And I really caught my eye last weekend in that game. So He's someone that could be up for Dally M Rookie of the Year come the Dally M Awards. Then the interchange bench reads Jaden Ockenbaugh, Corey Waddell, Jaden Tanner, and Fa'amanu Brown. I'm going to tip the Warriors. The Bulldogs, sort of in the same vein as the Manly Sea Eagles, they shut up shop with about 15, maybe 20 minutes to go, and allowed the Tigers to roar their way back into that contest. So again, there's still a bit of stuff in the Bulldogs game that was there in round one, which is why they lost, and it was there again on Sunday afternoon, which is how the Tigers got so bloody close, extraordinarily so, this past weekend. So I'm going to tip the Warriors. They're back at home defensively. They're a lot stronger. They're a lot meaner than the Bulldogs, in my opinion, even though the Bulldogs probably have the better attack. In saying that, though, no team so far in the NRL are running more decoy runs at teams than the New Zealand Warriors, and it's by a hefty by a hefty margin as well. The Warriors are throwing a lot at teams so far, and obviously it was always going to take time to gel and work out. Well, it caught friggin' fire last weekend, didn't it? The free-to-air game on Channel 9 Sunday afternoon football are the Newcastle Knights and the Canberra Raiders. On tab, the Knights are $2.75 outsiders. The Raiders are $1.45 favourites. And let's look at the team list news now, because there are changes by the looks of things. So starting with the Newcastle Knights, Lockie Miller, Hylam Hunt and Greg Marzu are the back three. So it does look like, I wasn't going to believe it until I saw it, but Dom Young has been dropped from the Newcastle Knights. I reckon Dom Young will be playing in a Roosters jersey now by the end of the season. Maybe not. I don't know. But the centre pairing for the Newcastle Knights, Bradman Best and Dane Gagai. Jackson Hastings will play in this game after he copped some awful whiplash last weekend. And Tyson Gamble is the 5'8". Daniel Saifidi, Leo Thompson and Jaden Brayley. He returns after a knockout in jersey number 9. And the back row is Brodie Jones, Lachlan Fitzgibbon and Kurt Mann. The interchange bench, Crossland, Hetherington, Croker and Jack Johns. And now we shift over to the Canberra Raiders now. The back three for them, Chris, Schiller and Albert Hopewadi. Very young back three, isn't it? The centres though, Matt Timiku and Harley Smith-Shields. Such a young back line, man. And Jack Whiten and Jamal Fogarty are the halves pairing. Josh Papali'i is back for the Canberra Raiders in jersey number 8. Joseph Tarpany is in jersey number 10. And Zach Wolford is in jersey number 9 because Danny Levi unfortunately broke his jaw last weekend. Poor bugger. The back row is unchanged for the Canberra Raiders. The interchange reads Starling, Solo, Corey Horsburgh, and Amray Goulet in jersey number 17. This is a really difficult game to tip, especially with the inclusion of Brayley and Hastings not succumbing to any sort of HIA or anything like that. Because the Knights, while they haven't been great, they've been barely good, they're showing a lot more ticker than a few other sides in the competition so far. And the Canberra Raiders, man, I don't know, if the Cronulla Sharks had Nico Hines or if the Cronulla Sharks were just simply better. The Raiders, I don't know, they weren't overly impressive in their victory, their first victory of the season against the Sharkies on Sunday Night Football. But, I don't know, man. This is a really difficult game to tip. I give the Knights a sniff. I really, really do. I give the Knights a sniff here, but the Raiders, they beat them twice last year, both in thrilling circumstances. I'm going to go the Canberra Raiders. But if I change my tip, I'll let everybody know, because I think the Newcastle Knights are going to be in for a massive game. And I think this is going to be a thriller. Raiders 1-12 at the moment. And the final game of round number 4, a packed round number 4, is the Great Southern Derby, as it's labelled. The St. George Illawarra Dragons host the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks from Netstrata Jubilee Stadium, and the Dragons are $2.55 outsiders, while the Sharks are $1.55 favourites. Let's get stuck into the team list news now. So in at fullback is Tyrell Sloan. It looks like the rest of the back line is unchanged for the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The forward pack is unchanged. Ben Murdoch-Masila is in there in jersey number 11. And interchange reads Little, Musgrove, Toby Couchman, and Josh Kerr. Shifting over to the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks now, and the backline by and large is unchanged, but Nico Hines is there in jersey number 7, so he has his first game since the NRL All-Stars this year. So welcome back, Nico Hines. They are now a different prospect. The forward pack now looks like that's all unchanged, and the interchange bench reads McInnes, Royce Hunt keeps his jersey, Oregon Kofusi, and Braden Trindle. So they're working with McInnes, Hunt, Kofusi, and Braden Trindle keeps his spot in jersey number 17 for the Sharkies. So since 2019, well, long before that, let me rephrase that. The Dragons and Sharks, for a long time, a long time, have played each other twice. They're rivals. It's a local derby. Fair enough, right? Since 2019 or 2018, I'll say 2019, the first game of a Dragons Sharks doubleheader throughout a season, has resulted in a 13 plus points victory to either side. And then the second game later on in that season has been decided by 6 points or less. So this is all looking like it's going to be a 13 plus points victory to someone, and I am looking straight at the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. I'm going to just trust them to put this as a 13 plus points victory. I do think the Sharkies can get the Dragons by 13 plus, but I don't know. I'm going to go the Sharks to win this one, 13 plus. Yo, that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for the continuous support. We did touch on 1K last week and it dropped down again, but that's just the robots and spam bugger. But thank you so much for the continuous support. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. And that is when I'm going to be talking to BKR Sport as we preview the Cowboys versus the Titans. Don't miss it. It's going to be the best match preview for that game you'll find anywhere. Thank you very much. Adios.